There have been some developments in the last couple of days. Initially, I think, Bud, you were passing along the idea that, this big college football playoff extension, a 6-year deal with ESPN, that, it's already dialed in and it's going to be this much money. And we discussed it a little bit here on the show, but really as a small piece of a bigger conversation of what the future is going to look like. Then all of a sudden it's like, hey, well, maybe this deal isn't signed yet. And now we've got even more reporting as first Yahoo Sports' Ross Dellinger had the report. And I know that we've got our own Dennis Dodd, the Dodd father, has confirmed it, as well as the MAC commissioner, John Steinbrecher, has sent a memo to the athletic directors in the MAC that says any reports of the college football playoff agreeing to a TV deal are, quote, incorrect. A person familiar with the talks told Dennis, quote, there was nothing that was put in front of these people at all. I can confirm the existence of that memo and everything that was in it. There isn't so much of a draft of the contract done yet, but we've got uncertainty around the future of the college football playoff. Big deal, little deal, no deal.
I think ultimately probably no deal, or sorry, not a big deal. Okay. I don't want to say no deal, which implies there won't be a deal. I don't have any inside information on this. I think it was The Athletic that put out that it was basically done or done. I don't think they would run with that. There could be some people who have to vote on it who say it's not done, which I guess technically means it's not done.
And to the credit of The Athletic, I do remember the report said pending ironing out all these, current issues that include the format of
which include nobody agreeing to the deal yet.
Pending everyone agreeing to the deal, we've got a deal. Mission accomplished. And Tom, what do you think? Big deal? No deal?
I don't think it's going to be a big deal in the long run, but it did, like we mentioned it last week when it came out, it was weird that they announced this deal before they even knew what the format's going to look like in a couple of years. And I think now that, this is coming out and it's not technically a deal yet, makes more sense to me than what last week's report did. But I do think ultimately it won't be a big deal. And I do think we're probably going to see ESPN still controlling the entire thing, which is a different discussion.
Yes. Do you think that we will ultimately still be at 12?
Yeah, you think they're going to expand?
Yes.
Yeah, eventually.
16.
But like with this current deal?
With the 6-year extension, not in the next 2 years. I think that one of the things that they would have is the interest to add more games to the first round, and in doing so, obviously generate more revenue for the deal.
But
and so,
isn't the lack of interest in the first round games that they have with 12 part of the reason the money's not what they all were anticipating it being? Like, do we really need 4 more teams in this thing? Even for TV, putting aside my personal opinion, like, are 4 more teams, 2 more games really going to move the needle that much?
It doesn't depend on your perspective, though, as to why you need it. Like, if I'm an administrator at a school that makes a really good living on college sports, I know that one of these court cases is going to break the wrong way, in my perspective, wrong way, right? As an administrator, we're going to have to start paying these athletes pretty soon. I don't want to take a pay cut, right? So I'm trying to increase the amount of revenue my school brings in basically any way I can, so that, because we're going to have to actually pay the talent at some point. So if they make more money with more playoff games, then yeah, I think that's kind of what they're looking for. We root for a business.
I know.
Well, hold on. Let's be clear. I don't know about what we root for.
Okay, we root for the product.
I root for me. I root for Chip Patterson University. I want to be right with all my predictions. I want my opinions to make me sound like a genius. I root for me. But yeah, this is it's interesting. I think that what we are looking at is a more realization of how much is left to be determined. And with this, if I'm to really get my CFP on tinfoil hat on, the fact that this leak is coming from the MAC commissioner and the MAC in general, a conference that is probably on the low end of the payouts when they're negotiating such things, I would say that, that message is being sent to your ADs by saying, hey, you're making your budgets for 3-5 years down the line. Don't think that it's the number that was reported in the media reports. we might be working to be able to get you more money on top of that. And I think that that's probably, what's happening in the jockeying that we have going on right here. Reminder on the college football playoff side, Tuesday, we could see them on the 20th. We could see them actually make the decision voting to go to the 5+7 format for 2024. Again, that come in one way or the other. I think that after Tuesday, we will know 6+6 or 5+7. So then we can start doing our mock brackets.
It should be 5+7.
Yes.
I mean, come on. But
what?
2+0.
2+0. We'll see.
That's awesome.
Coming up on the other side, Steve Sarkisian. Hey, there's another meeting coming up later this week that is set for him to get a new contract approved. Big time raise for Coach Sark. Now he's going to be graded against, the SEC head coaches, a group that has also had some turnover in recent years. So where does Steve Sarkisian and his new deal, where does Steve Sarkisian, the coach, stack up against the new look SEC coaches? We'll get into that and more next.
The madness doesn't just happen.
Y'all get ready!
And although it's marked on our calendars each year, it's built by moments of mayhem before.
And the crowd goes crazy!
And it begins to bubble long before it bursts. Sure, madness and March may go hand in hand, but it starts right here.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. So we got some news over the weekend as Steve Sarkisian, the Texas head football coach, the University of Texas System Board of Regents is set to approve a contract extension that will nearly double his annual compensation to more than $10 million per season. That coming from Mark Schlabach, ESPN, but reported widely. I think that a raise for Steve Sarkisian, given what he's been able to do in a limited time with the Longhorns, is absolutely fair. Let's bring him up to market value. If we think Texas is one of the top 10 programs in the country and he's a big part of getting them there, then he should probably be compensated like one of the top 10 coaches in the country, as he would be after this raise. But I thought a more potentially more interesting conversation is one that comes out of this, and we will be having it again in May when we all have to fill out our CBS Sports Coach Rankings ballots. Where does Steve Sarkisian fall among the top coaches in the SEC, and how do you kind of stack that group up? You can put numbers on it, but if you want to tier it out, that's fine too. But we're talking about a group that, we have had and Nick Saban retire. We have had job changes in recent years, like last 3 to 4 years, at places like LSU, Mississippi State, Oklahoma. Now that we're adding Oklahoma to the mix as well, Texas A&M has had a job change as well. It is a group, the SEC head coaches, that are in flux. And so Steve Sarkisian heading into his 4th year with the Longhorns. Bud, where do you put him among SEC coaches?
So I took my notepad here, and so behind Kirby,
right,
who's in his own tier, coaches that I'm not really convinced that he's better or worse than, so sort of on a similar tier. Brian Kelly, Kalen DeBoer. Am I missing anybody? And then the next tier, I kind of have like Elko, Heupel, like guys who have had some success at lower division programs. They seem to be pretty competent. Am I missing somebody that
Lane?
Yeah, Lane.
I would have Lane in the 3rd tier.
Yeah, I'd have him in that 3rd tier. Like he had success at FAU. He failed with the Raiders. He failed with USC. He's had some nice seasons at Ole Miss, but nothing special so far. So
I disagree. I think for Ole Miss, what he's done is special.
I don't want to pre-bump him. We actually have to see him make this new roster gel. And like if he actually goes and gets to the SC title game or wins it, then I'll bump him up. But so far he hasn't won anything.
Yeah, I'm with Bud. I would have Kirby on tier 1 all by himself. And then tier 2 is hey, I've been to the playoff or the title game. I haven't won it yet. And that would be DeBoer, Sark, and Kelly. And then there's everybody else.
Where do you put Napier? Like, because Beamer's in a sort of a 4th tier, I think, right? So is Pittman.
I didn't hear anybody say Eli Drinkwitz.
Drinkwitz is in that sort of
3rd tier.
Yeah, Drinkwitz with Lane.
Mm-hmm.
I might be. I am trying not to make sure that I am overrating, just sort of the aura of Lane Kiffin, but 2 New Year's Six bowl appearances, 2 top 11 finishes in the last 3 years. At Ole Miss, that doesn't happen a lot.
Hugh Freeze did it.
Double-digit win seasons doesn't happen. No, Hugh Freeze lost like 4 games a year. He would beat somebody awesome.
He got the New Year's Six bowls.
He definitely got the New Year's Six bowls.
He went to 1 New Year's Six bowl.
Didn't go to 2?
Okay. So where's Hugh? Where's Hugh
Let me
Freeze?
check Hugh's phone records and see how many times he got the New Year's Six bowl.
I mean, isn't Freeze right there with Lane?
Okay.
Auburn hired Freeze over Lane in a pretty public thing, so at least one vote that matters. And Lane wanted the job from all reports, so I don't think you could really have Lane over Freeze based on what they've done so far in their career.
So Steve Sarkisian firmly ahead of the thick of good coaches who haven't separated each other from each other. I think that putting him on the same tier as Brian Kelly is interesting.
They've both made playoff games. They have not won a playoff game. They've both shown they can run large organizations competently, which is not as easy as people think it is. You know, it does help to have good NIL, but like there's still a lot of complications and headaches that come with that. So, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with those three. And DeBoer, because of the track record at so many different spots, really helps.
But good ball coach theory.
Like, yeah, if you wanted to do it like numbers wise in that second tier, have them 2, 3, 4, I would go Kelly, and then you can do DeBoer and Sark. You could put Sark on the bottom of those 3, but I think tier wise, they're in that same tier.
Yeah, I would say that seems fair.
Tier 4 is like guys who have never had success as a head coach anywhere. You know, like Beamer was never head coach, hasn't had success in South Carolina. Pittman, kind of the same thing.
Levy, first year head coach.
Levy, Clark Lee, right? Exactly.
Venables.
Yeah. Venables is an interesting one. Do you give him credit for being that good for that long?
As a defensive coordinator?
I think he belongs in that 4th category until he shows something, something more on the field.
Yes.
Like to miss the Big 12 title game this year with that schedule.
Yes.
Was a pretty big red flag to me.
Yeah. Steve Sarkisian did improve things on the field. I think that he also did a really good job of sort of the vibesy stuff around Texas. Yeah. It did not seem like even all the way to watching the way they stormed back in that Sugar Bowl and damn near won it right at the end of the game. They just didn't seem to have any of the was Texas football soft for a while?
I don't know, soft-ish, but I feel like that part of that is the narrative that the Big 12 overall was soft. So I don't know if that could kind of bleed in. I just thought Texas was not developed or well coached for a while.
Stoops, by the way, tier 3.
Ooh, we didn't say Mark Stoops.
Yeah, I would say tier 3 for sure. I mean, he's not in that second tier, but he's definitely in the, hey, this guy's a good coach, and he's not.
He's a really good coach.
Yeah.
By the way, Chip,
yes.
Hugh Freeze, 2 New Year's Six bowls at Ole Miss.
Okay. Were they back to back?
Yeah, Peach Bowl and a Sugar Bowl, and he finished 2 years in a row in the college football playoff rankings, 9th and 12th. So,
So Lane Kiffin is accomplishing everything Hugh Freeze did.
Correct.
Boom, roasted.
And if past is prologue, Ole Miss is going 5-7 this year, because that's what Hugh did after 2 back-to-back New Year's Six bowls, and then the phone records came out.
Freeze also did it. The Freeze losses, I felt like, were worse, but Freeze did beat the very best team. Yeah, like they would beat the best team in the SEC, and he did it a couple times. Whereas
they would lose to the worst.
But Lane's Ole Miss teams so far, I don't want to make the mistake of saying that they will always be this way, but so far they have gotten stomped. Like Georgia this year, non-competitive game. Alabama, from a physical standpoint, like Bama couldn't throw. They had an absolute disaster of an offense. It was still not competitive because the defense just snuffed them out. It was when they have gone up against like the really, really, really good teams, they're not competitive. Now, Freeze would screw around and like lose to a 5-loss Arkansas team,
right? Which
so far Lane has not done, and that is also hard to avoid doing. But we need to see like Ole Miss beat some teams. We're like, damn, it's like a legit top 5 team they just beat, and they don't do it so far.
I think that
popcorn ready.
I, I think Texas football has shown that they do have a little bit of an edge. They do have a little bit of the whatever Bo Davis was screaming about on that bus that day that he did not see. I think they have that. And so that in its of itself, when you're taking over a behemoth like that, to identify what needs to be fixed and help lead those changes, Steve Sarkisian gets a lot of points in my book. I agree with you, Kirby, on the first tier. And then we start a debate that Steve Sarkisian is very much a part of. I'll throw Brian Kelly in as my personal vote, but certainly that can change. Again, May is when we do the CBS Sports Coach Rankings at cbssports.com, and of course, reveal a lot of our ballots and debates here on the Cover 3 podcast.
It is going to be so hard.
Yes.
I started working on mine from scratch, but I need to email Silverstein like, hey, do you have my ballot from last year? Because I can't remember where I had everybody. So I'm gonna have to go back and like watch the show, I guess. But dude, with all these guys retiring, it is difficult.
Yeah, you're going to find yourself retiring or getting fired. I mean, like Jimbo held
Right.
a spot at the top of the rankings
Yeah.
based on a national championship and a history of mostly winning. That spot is gone, and it's going to be occupied by somebody who does not have a national championship ring. So going to be interesting to see how all those things shake out.